Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. I'm Lucas and welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be doing a track guide around the Bahrain circuit on F122. The lap I have here today for is actually, I think it's a PB lap that I set for when I was practicing for F1 Esports. And yeah, I'm not going to bore you, we're going to jump straight into it. And what I'm going to do is just going to play the lap itself first. And I believe I have the sector times as well, which should also give a bit of a reference. But yeah, this was set online in Q3, just for reference. So heading into turn 1 now, braking just about the 100-meter board, and this circuit overall is very rear limited. Why is that said like that? There we go. This circuit overall is very rear limited. So you're basically waiting on the rear a lot for, that's the limiting factor. That is what limits you in terms of lap time, in terms of car performance, is the rear end. You're not limited by front grip, you're limited by rear grip. And the reason for that is there's so many slow speed sort of traction zones, which we're going to break down after we've played this lap through. Especially like corners like this as well, where it's critical to get the exits, because a lot of the exits set yourselves up for quite long sort of straight line full throttle sections. So yeah, and then coming into the final sector now, getting that nice little apex. Have a little bit of correction actually through there, using plenty of curb, opening up the corner nicely. Very sweeping line through there. It was quite sophisticated, some of the lines we were taking around here, just due to the way we had the car set up, but it really worked. And then you have one. This corner is so easy to throw it all away, but we've got really good speed commitment. And coming to the line now, 0.26 up on the delta, and that was a 6.53 on the delta, on the lap time, sorry. And there are your sectors for which we did the lap with. So yeah, now what we're going to do is we're going to go through the lap bit by bit, and I'm going to break down sort of each section and to sort of give some pointers. So for the start of the lap, there's not really much to be said, obviously. We're just going to... It's very easy to overthink your braking point into turn 1, but what you're looking for at this point, so you've obviously got your marker boards, but you also have the start. You can see my cursor. You have the start of this curb, so we're going to roll her into the corner. And you do not want to brake 100 meters. So if you brake at 100 meters, that's too late. Typically, the 100-meter board is sort of like a reference marker that you can typically, use for many like heavy braking zones from from top speed down to a slow speed corner. But here, 100 meters is too late. So heading, this is where I'm really looking. This is like one of my references here at the start of this curb. And then you want to brake, I think it's roughly around the middle here when we're really pushing the limit. So we're just now, you can just see on the brake trace, right now on this frame as we are. So there's the red bit of section of curb there. So if you really want to be super specific, it's on the third red striped curb there as we start to apply the brake, and then we're on full brake by the time we are before the 100 meters. So it's quite very easy to overshoot this because you're not braking exactly on a meter board. You're braking somewhere between like the start, this sort of segment here. But yeah, that's sort of what I use as a reference heading into turn 1. I won't go I'll end up spending like 5 minutes talking about a braking zone. But then it's very heavy braking, and it's quite tricky because you need to start to trail off the brake relatively early to sort of feed the car in. Otherwise, you're going to understeer into this corner. Now, in this lap, as you can see, we're starting to peel off the brakes and starting to wind in the lock. On this lap, we get to the apex pretty well, not all the way to the inside, but what I would say is it isn't absolutely essential to focus on that apex clipping point. It's more about getting the car in with good speed, but also making it rotate in such a way that you get out the corner nicely. So if you're able to do that, and you don't, if you're like even a little bit further away from the apex, it's not the end of the world. Because what is critical from turn 1, as we're about to roll her on a bit now, taking 4th gear as well, I should note. Now that is variable. That depends on setup, driving style, preference. Typically I'm usually on the higher side of gears. Not all the time, that's definitely not the case at some tracks. I sort of just try to adapt to what I think's best to the car, the track, all these sort of things. So yeah, but when 4th gear, obviously, and now this is The traction is essential. This is where we were talking about real limitation. The traction is essential for getting out of this corner. So, yeah, and then the reason it's so essential is because it sets you up not only for turn 2, but all the way down to turn 4, and that is a huge chunk of lap time. So if you mess up turn 1, it is yeah, very, very tricky to come back from in sector 1. So what I would typically say is it's all about making sure you get that exit out of this corner, even if it means even if you miss the apex. So we'll run it through now. Into the corner, off the brakes, got to the apex very nicely. On the lap before, we clearly carried more speed in because we're actually down on the delta, but what we do is we get a much nicer exit. Immediately once we hit that apex point, we start to pick up time on the delta. And then, as you can see, winding away almost to full throttle. Now we're full throttle, now we're backing out tiny bit of throttle, and by the time we get to... Where's the lowest point? This is the low. We're down to like 152 minimum speed, give or take. Nope, tell a lie. Oh, yeah, 15. Yeah, we're constantly carrying speed through there, but the throttle is at the lowest point here, so that you can see the throttle trace right here. That is, you're not able to take this corner flat. It's not going to happen unless you have, I don't know, max downforce and a very safe setup on traction. So it's all about balance. You don't wanna. It's quite easy to overshoot this corner or get too greedy. But I think turn 1 and 2 are basically the same thing. You've got, and actually turn 1 and 2 and 3 are the same sort of complex. They all sort of happen as one in a way. What you do in 1 compromises 2 and sort of tails on to what happens in 3. So that yeah, it's important to get all of these sections right. And then we straight on the apex, and once we're past the apex, we just smoothly get ourselves to full throttle around here, and then we were able to use lots of curb, because one thing we did quite well around this strat is we had the car pretty well set up to be quite useful on curbs. And no, before someone says it, it's not FPS. This is 240 FPS, so yeah, unlucky. But yeah, we had the car set up pretty well, I think, given the stage of where we were at with setups at that phase of the game. We had a very quick Bahrain setup. So coming out of turn 1 and 2 and 3, it's all sort of one segment, and we're actually up on our previous delta, which I think was maybe a 9-0, which isn't a terrible lap in itself for the first run of Q3. Now, heading down into turn 4, what you want to be doing, you can see me starting to drift over to the left hand side. This isn't like this isn't really like anything sandy. This is the grip drop off. There isn't really any at all. I don't think there is any anyway, because we're using this line all the time. The only thing that could maybe upset your car, albeit very minuscule, is this curb here. But we've not really had that issue, and I don't even know if it's an issue. It's just that's the only thing that would upset you if I'm going out this far. So the key for turn 4 is to make the corner basically as straight as possible. So that's why we're opening up this entry, and you're braking for this corner pretty much smack bang on 100 meters. There we go. We're actually past 100 meters now, so we're actually braking even later than that, and now we're getting onto the brakes at this frame here. Then we're heavy onto the brakes, down to 4th gear for this corner. And then for this corner, it is essential that you somewhat make the apex. You can carry in a lot of speed, but then the problem is if you carry in lots of speed here, like we probably did on this lap here. So on the previous lap, we were 300s up on the entry, 3,500 up, 0.35 up. Then we're opening the corner, and we're sort of we're not going early apex, we're not going late apex, we're just sort of hitting that apex perfectly on this sort of clipping point here. And as you can see, we're 600s down relative to our entry. So in the previous lap, we've obviously charged in with a lot of speed, trying to be aggressive, and then trying to hang on through the exit. But what happens through this corner is if you carry too much speed, you'll end up running yourself out of road and risking yourself to invalidate as well. So we short shift the 5th as well to allow us to really get planted onto the power, and I'm just going to play it out actually as we get on the exit and just watch what happens in the delta, that we've perfectly set ourselves up for the exit and short shifted, and we're going to get smoothly on the power. Using all this road on the exit as well. This can upset your car if you have the car set up maybe too aggressively, or if you're like super low and ride height, let's say. Not that you really would, I guess, but this is, again, these are just sort of the factors that you have to vary in. And yeah, so you're just using all the road available. That's a common theme you're going to see me talk about in this lap is using, you know, everything we've got available to us, and that isn't something that we do. I've done at every track. For example, Abu Dhabi, I would say I kind of had the opposite style where I was making the corners very tight, very angled, due to, you know, this what we were sort of the setup style we were running there. But here was very much about maximising the road. So, and we had the car set up to do that. So that was it was working perfectly. So I'll stop rambling on, and that's sector 1 done. So as you continue watching the Delta, I'm going to stop it here. 800's up. So remember, we're 0.35 up on entry. We lost 600s net to the apex, but on the exit, we made those gains. So that was a 978 sector 1, which is very, very quick, I think, from memory, for our setup. That was like really, really quick sector 1. So yeah, not bad at all. And now we're starting sector 2. So again, exact commenting. And now remember, track limits is basically based off of this white line here. We are using on the entry, and you have to have the car set up to do this perfectly and comfortably, but we are literally using every last millimeter available on this entry to open up the corner, because it's important through this right-hander. Again, it's sort of like dominoing on the effect through these laps. You've got to get this corner right to carry all the speed through the left. If you make this corner too tight, you're not only going to lose speed through this corner, but then the next corner. So getting this entry set up is critical for carrying the speed through the start of sector 2. So placing your car in the right place. So we are just going to play it through normally, get into that curb nicely on the powerful throttle now. So we're going to run it back smooth. So you saw it in full speed, now we're going to run it back. So all the entry width, sorry, and then we were holding 6th gear. You can go to 7th, then down to 6th. Actually, I think I've seen people use 5th here as well. Again, depends on style, setup, all these things. But we used 6th, kept it constant all the way through. A little touch of brake as well. So you're not scrubbing much speed off. All you want to do is just get yourself pointed into that apex just about right, using a tiny bit of curb. And these curbs are they can rotate the car quite a bit, so if you use these curbs quite a lot, you will notice it can upset the car either way. It can cause you understeer by pushing you out of line, or it can actually grip the car up and inside the inside wheels. You've got to be careful with that, because it can quite easily overload it. But what we did here was we just used that perfect sort of balance, that tiny little bit, to make use of the track width and not really upset the car. And now we're 10th up in the Delta as we fly through here. Now, this is what I was talking about before, because if you take, let's say, a tighter line through here, I know I'm going back and forth, but don't worry, we are moving forward. Let's say we have the car over here, right? Let's say we do a traditional line, more like maybe like real life F1, where we have our outside wheel basically aligned with this white line. We would have such a tighter angle of entry, that meaning that if we were to carry this same amount of speed, we wouldn't be here on the road, we would be basically out here. We would not be able to carry that same angle and the same speed with that line on entry. So it's fine margins, but it's what ultimately sets up a very big beneficial difference through here, because this corner isn't flat out. This is very much a corner, so the easier you can make this corner, the more you can really commit on the power and gain time. So yeah, heading through now this apex. This curb's the one that you'll more prominently use out of the two in this right-left sequence. And yeah, this curb, yeah, and then again, just all about getting on the power. So you can see we're on full throttle now, balancing the throttle around probably about, I'd say that's maybe about 60-65%, give or take. Delta looking pretty neutral, and then your full power as soon as you can, as soon as you get the car balanced. Now, this curb here, I mean, it needs no introduction. It's a death curb. If you get it wrong, it's probably going to be in a very big way. So yeah, we had the car set up quite well, so we could use a lot of this curb, and we aren't using all of it, because if you put so if you look at the curb here, it's split into two sections. So you've got your underfloor, your under tray here. Sometimes what can happen, especially if you have the car lower, you'll ground out and the car will bump, and sometimes it'll drag you along this curb a bit further down the road, which means that you can't bring the car all the way back to the left over here to get the braking, because another common theme with this track, corners chain into other corners. It's all in sync. If you compromise one, you're ruining the next, and then the next. It's all about flow, about chaining them together. It's like sort of a combination. So yeah, I'll get going on with it now. I know this video is going to be quite long, but I'm trying to give you guys the best possible details so that you can hopefully go faster. So yeah, not using all of this curb because we were managed to, again, and the reason we don't need to use a lot of this curb is because we set ourselves up really nicely through here. So it's all about car placement. So now that we're through there, we hold 6th gear. You can go up to 7th, but again, depends on what gears you're wanting to use, what your preferences are. We're 10th up in the Delta now, and what I've typically done is I want to open this corner up a lot. So yeah, we're fully on the brakes about now. There isn't really any reference point for this corner. Your eyes are pretty much solely fixed on, the apex here, or if you're maybe needing to spot something over here quickly before you get to your eyes fixated here. Yeah, so we're on full on brakes now, and again, we are using not every last bit of road, because if we went a bit more wide here, then we would maybe have too much work to do to try and get the car in here. And what we're actually doing here is we're driving straight now, but we're fully on the brakes, and we're actually turning at the same time, which is very hard to do. But equally, our car was we had a lot of grip available. So it meant I could really push the front quite hard, especially in these longer on the front loaded braking zones. We were able to push the car quite hard, and that's why you're able to see me using all the width on this entry, fully on the brakes and turning at the same time. It's very easy to pinch the front right. A lot of the time you actually do. But yeah, now we're starting to, and then again, we're taking 3rd gear for this corner, and I believe we're going to short shift once we're past the apex into 4th. And yeah, we're using all that road in the apex, and again, this corner it's a balance. You can carry good speed in, but you need to get a good exit. So you can see we're off the brakes now and folding on our steering to the maximum point. Short shifting to 4th, balancing on the power, getting on the power really nicely, really smooth progression, and just using a little bit of curb, just to maximise the road. And cause we've got the majority of our traction down, as I think we're nearly full throttle now, because we've sort of reallocated our grip and we're getting on the power, we're able to use this curb just a little bit, because if you, let's say, try and get on power on this curb, you will break traction, but we had enough grip available just to use that road the way we suited. Now, arguably the hardest corner on the track, heading now down into the it's the tricky left-hander. I think that's sort of the nickname we had for it, the tricky left-hander. Or turn, I think it's turn 9, so you get 1, 2, 3, 4. I should really know corner numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, turn 9/10, because it's technically 2 corners. So yeah, let's go on. And then what we want to do is we're opening. I take a very different line than a lot of people through here. And again, multiple lines will work. It depends on your style, your confidence on the braking, what your car will allow you to do as well. But this is the line I took. Whether it works for you, I'll show you the 2 different solutions, I guess, that will maybe work. Because if one doesn't work, there'll be another one that will work for you. So what I did on the entry is I'm just going to play it through. I took a very wide entry, and again, I was able to brake very, very well while turning the car, which allowed me to carry in a lot of speed while cornering at the same time. So let's break that one down real quick. So taking such a wide sweeping line, heavy onto the brakes. Now key thing here is I do not reach peak brake pressure. That's because your front tyres are at a high peak of grip. You're very front loaded into these corners. But our car was, again, very well suited to being able to push that front on the braking zones, but have a lot of grip in general on the front. So, and to ride the curbs crucially. So there's a lot of factors that goes into how we're able to do everything. So not reaching peak brake pressure, we're going to go down to 3rd gear. Yeah, 3rd gear. And it's on this entry, the more speed you can carry into the apex, the better, because it's very easy to, and you do not want to be too tight to this apex. If you touch this curb, it's not good. You want to try and, we don't get, let's say, completely to the apex, so to speak, but the more important thing in this is we've managed to get off the brakes nicely in third gear, and we're getting on the power already, short shifting to fourth, and again, I use every bit of road available to us here because we had a lot of grip and a lot of use of curb, and we were able to get on the power really, really nicely because we are, you know, we're straddled on the curb in a consistent manner. We're not half on it or crossing on this sort of interchangeable section. We are, you know, one wheel's on one bit, one wheel's on another bit, get on the power. So yeah, we're full throttle now. And yeah, that the most critical thing there is we carried so much speed through the entry, through the apex, and got on the power nice on the exit. And now look at the delta. We are massively, massively up. Into this section, I actually dropped the diff down a little bit as well. And again, it's going to be very much the same sort of story for the rest of the lap now. So you guys will have, you guys know the drill now. Using every millimeter of road available, braking sort of you're between the 50 and the 100 meter board. Actually, you're much more closer to the 50 meter board. So you're probably about, I don't know, let's see, probably about 60 meters, give or take, braking into this corner, down to fifth, I believe. Get into that apex nicely. Now, if you miss this apex, as long as you're setting up the exit and carrying good and getting on the power nicely and carrying the speed out, it's not the end of the world. So this apex is one that if you hit, it's all good, but it's important to get the exit speed. Keeping that minimum speed up is essential through here. Smoothly on the power. Had a little bit of a correction there as well, and then using just saving. All we're doing here is just saving distance. We're just making the road shorter, and just to gain that a little bit. And we're 0.25 up now on the delta anyway. So again, now that's the end of sector 2 as well. We have a 2-6-4 split, and this is a very tricky braking zone because, and the reason it's so tricky. Oh wait, so quickly before we've just ended sector 2. This is very professional of me. So into this corner, I said I would tell you 2 lines. This is the line I took, but a line that I've seen a lot of other people do, and I've also done at times as well, is you don't take the wide line, but you drive in much, much tighter. But instead of braking at an angle like I do, you drive in straighter, save distance on the entry, so you're actually quicker on the entry by keeping the distance down, braking it harder in a straight line, which means you've got more grip available to brake. But then you have a sharper angle because I'm turning in with a much straighter car, whereas if you're coming in, you'll be turning in to the apex at a sort of a sharper angle, so it'll be sort of like in comparison, it's sort of like this sort of thing. And then on the exit, you will probably lose time with that line, depending whether you want to use the curb or not. So yeah, I wanted to quickly cover that because I forgot to mention that one there. But yeah, sector 3 now. And again, this is a very tricky braking zone because you are braking very, very heavily, pushing the front. So you're using all the grip available on the front. This is actually probably one of the few front limited corners, especially through entry mid corner on the whole track. And you're pushing the front very hard through here. And the reason the braking's so hard is because you're transitioning from using all of this road here off of the road, and then you're coming off it, and as you can see, look at the front left suspension. You can see it compressing and moving up and down on the bump right there, and you can see the front wheel, left wheel dipping. So if you push that front left too hard, or brake too hard, carry too much speed, turn too much, you're going to lock that wheel. So what we do really well here is we utilize literally to the last tiny little bit available the grip we have without managing to lock up. So braking very heavily down to fourth, and then we got to the apex really nicely. But again, we're actually down on the delta on entry, but we're going to get a good exit here. Short shift to fifth. And again, it looks for quite a long time in that corner like we're not going to break even on the delta, but we lost a lot on the entry because we obviously carried in more speed the time before, but we gained it all on the exit. Sometimes it's about being patient. And then again, one more corner to negotiate. Using every bit of road available, braking around 75 meters, fully on the brakes, and you do not want to understeer in this corner. You want to try your very, very best to get into that apex because the circuit will dip down and help you grip up. So down to fourth gear, circuit dips down here, short shifting to fifth, and then you're using all of the exit again once more. And yeah, you don't. This is a tricky corner because we actually use the curb a tiny smidge here, but the key thing is because we're carrying in all the speed, the front right is quite unloaded at this point, so it's not a critical, it's not a dependable tyre for this phase of the corner. Anyway, so you can see we just use all that road, short shifting to 5th, and then just holding the throttle tiny bit balanced until we're out here, and then we're flat the minute we are stable over the curb. Running it out, gaining an extra 100th, DRS open, and to the line. And I think that is, I know that's quite a long video, but that is as thorough a track guide as I can, in a way I can give for you guys around Bahrain. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you've stuck around this long, I hope you've learned some tips, learned some tricks in this video, and yeah. I hope to catch you guys in the next one. Let me know if you found this sort of format video useful, whether you would like to see it shorter, because I know it's actually quite a long video at this point. But if you would like to see it shorter, if you want to, yeah, just give me your thoughts, your suggestions, whether you went faster after watching this video. Yeah, just let me know. So yeah, thank you very, very much for watching, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. So yeah, take care, everyone.